The fire element, as I say, associated with the organs of the heart, which is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., high noon. This is the time that the heart is at its peak, and the heart is at its low between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. And the small intestine is 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Those are peak times. It's associated with the tongue. The organ, the sense organ is the tongue. And often when a person has an imbalance in this fire element and with the heart, there's stuttering. There is maybe rapid speaking or stumbling over words. It's not fluid. The tongue is not behaving as it should. And we often look at the tongue as a diagnostic indicator. And if you felt like a sore at the tip of your tongue, or when we look at the tongue, it's red, that shows heart inflammation or excess. So we look at the tongue as a diagnostic indicator as well. It's associated with the blood vessels. We talk about the cardiovascular system, so it's not only the heart, it's the vessels as well that the blood flows through. So incidences of stroke, heart attack, those things are obviously in the domain of the fire element. The emotion, we said anger is the emotion associated with the wood element. The emotion is joy or excess joy, and laughter is the sound of the voice. What we said shouting was the sound of the voice for the wood element. Laughter, and it's always the inappropriateness of the laughter. So somebody could be talking about the death of their dog and they're laughing, or they could be talking about something that is obviously not a happy thing and they're just kind of nervously laughing or laughing. That sound of laughter is associated with the fire element. If you're familiar with psychological jargon, hypophrenia, where a person just laughs uncontrollably, is associated with this fire element. The odor is scorched. There's actually an odor. We said it was rancid with the wood element. It is scorched with the fire element. And there's a smell, an odor that smells like, sometimes it's, I usually talk about it as if, for people who still iron their clothes, if you were to be ironing your clothes, not that you scorch it or burn it, but there's an odor that happens, kind of a burnt, or anything that's burnt toast or things like that, the scorched smell. A person can have that odor, and that is associated with the fire element, and is one of the diagnostic indicators. Color, sound, emotion, pulses, odors, all these things that the person presents with a particular presentation or set of symptoms, and the skilled doctor looks at all of these things and puts them together. And if you have three of them, we call it the three legs of the stool. If, for example, they have a laughing voice, a scorched smell, and they have a red appearance, we might directly think about a fire imbalance. There's something going on with that heart. So when we say that the climate is heat, is associated with this, and then, as I mentioned, the color is red. So a predisposition to liking the color red is there, or an aversion to red, but also the color of the face. The taste is bitter. This is the growth process. We said birth was associated with the wood element. The growth is associated with the fire element as we mature, or maturation. The direction is south. So you may think of the prototype of this fire element, red, laughter, usually jolly in that sense. Santa Claus is the prototype that you can think about with his ho, 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 and red, usually red cheeks, red nose, excess fire, and wearing red.
How about our president? Pretty red in the face.
Yeah, the more that is, yes. But I wouldn't consider him a fire and balance. He's way less jolly. I never see him laugh. He never has a smile on his face. He's more of a metal element, is hard, sarcastic, and cutting. That is more of a quality of the metal element, which is associated with the lungs. And so as far as that analysis goes.
Well, the also more orange, and it's painted on rather than being truly red in the face.
Yes, that's right. So the fire element's associated with the 3 months of summer, where there is an abundance of sunshine and of growth and heat. But heart, I mean, the fire element has to do with joy in a positive sense as well. And that human beings, you know, we need to interact. And one of the things about this, the COVID, is being in isolation has probably affected the fire element of a lot of people in terms of touch. You know, we express our affection in hugging and kissing and being close, and we have removed ourselves from that situation. And for human beings, you know, the worst thing we can do to a human being is put him in isolation, to put him in solitary confinement. That is really cruel and unusual punishment. As human beings, you know, we need that connection and a sense of belonging. So our relationships are very much a part of this fire element, and it's quintessential, the symbol of love and affection and compassion, our relationships. So hug and embrace, you know, and communicating our feelings is the essence of this particular element.
What about the maroon robes of the Tibetan and Nepalese Buddhists?
My teacher, J.R. Worsley, said the most beneficial color is aubergine, you know, kind of a red, the color of eggplant. But red and yellow, that has been the Tibetan colors, more ochre and orange, the Indian and forest dwelling. But, you know, we all have our inclinations towards color. And too much of a particular color can be overwhelming. It's good, just like we said with food, to have different tastes, to have different colors of the food on our plate. So to answer your question, that we're talking about the physical form. For me, as my sun sign, you know, I was born a Leo, so I have a sun sign, and the color is red or ruby or gold. So these colors are very attractive to me, fortunately. I'm not sure they are to all monks, but I'm perfectly happy to be wearing these colors. But they were the least expensive of colors in the time of the Buddha. Red dye was very simple. So I mentioned before that the body is seen as a kingdom. We talk about the kingdom of the body, mind, spirit. And we mentioned last time the wood element, the official of planning and decision making. Here, the heart is called the supreme controller. It is the emperor. It's the monarch of the body, mind, and spirit. And in Japanese acupuncture, you didn't even treat the heart meridian because it was seen to be that kind of. In Japan, you didn't even look at the emperor. But obviously now we are. It's a different day. We obviously do treat the heart. But it is the supreme controller. It is the monarch of our body, mind, spirit. And so it is said that if there is something the matter with the heart, we will really be discombobulated. If the king is distressed, the body will be distressed. And the demands confronting it all the time are putting more and more, we see it is the primary cause of disease and death, cardiovascular disease. So we're under a great deal of pressure, and that stress affects the heart. It affects the supreme controller. Although death is inevitable for all of us, how we manage our health, and that's the reason we're doing this. We want to live a long, healthy life so that we can cultivate our bodhicitta and realize our Buddha nature. So that is why we have the good fortune of being born human. So we want to maximize that opportunity. Although we know death is inevitable. And if the heart stops even for a few minutes, that's all for us. So as we mentioned, it is the most common cause of death. Nearly 1 in 3, according to the American Heart Association, is attributed to disease, stroke, or other cardiovascular diseases. And I've had the good fortune to have all of those. So it is a very amazing organ, and it is constantly working. Other body systems get a break. But the heart is constantly beating in your chest for the duration of your life. And, when a newborn baby comes into the world, it is quickly placed on the mother's chest, and that sound of the mother's beating heart can quiet, soothe, and pacify that crying child who has been close to the heart of the mother for those 9 months. Yeah, when we think about just how much the heart has to work, it beats on the average of about 60 to 90 beats per minute. If you're on the athletic side, it's less than that because your heart has an increased capacity and it actually beats less. So that's about 4,800, almost 5,000 beats an hour, 115,000 plus beats a day, and 42 million plus beats a year. So it's got a great capacity to do its job. But for us to take time, and there are various exercises, that we do to support the heart and the cardiovascular system, the things that we've talked about in terms of diet, exercise, hydration, those kinds of things all play a part in the health of the heart. The small intestine is I mentioned the heart and speech and stuttering. Biden has had a stuttering problem, and I would say that he is probably a fire in balance. He has great compassion, shows great love and understanding for people, but being tongue-tied, being stuttering, and he does trip over his words frequently when he speaks. That is a symptom of a fire imbalance. But from that, you can develop great courage. And just as if you watch the movie The King's Speech, I think that was 2010, the biographical drama of the British King George VI, who dealt with stuttering, and when he spoke and he overcame it. And for George the Sixth, King George VI, it was there's often an issue about love and affection. He had a very stern father who showed no affection to him, and he came out stuttering when he was stressed. And to overcome that obstacle required, again, perseverance, as it did for Vice President Biden. So fire grants us the capacity, to have a nice skin tone. If it is not working, it'll be dull and lack what we call luster, which is kind of a quality of the skin, a brightness of the skin. It'll look dull and not have vitality. And again, the emotion associated with the heart, the fire element, is joy. And we have so many different things that we use the word heart in: heartbroken, heartfelt, hard-hearted. You can probably think of other kinds of terms that relate to particular emotional states that we attribute to the heart. So we want to cultivate this loving kindness and compassion is good for the heart, and it is a quality of the fire element to consciously cultivate loving kindness and compassion. And it's the hallmark of being human. It's what separates us really from other species. So we want to cultivate a good heart. And it also governs the mind. The word shen in Chinese means both heart and mind. And so in Asian countries, when asked where is the mind, they often point to the heart. Here, we usually point to our head. So our brain is we think of as the mind. But in language is very interesting. How we say things, how we think about things, and this it basically means heavenly light, shen, and means both heart and mind, and it equates to the heart and mind. And when it's disturbed, when the shen is disturbed, it manifests as confusion, it manifests as disorientation, in isolation, insomnia, difficulty sleeping, poor memory. Memory is also associated with this. And the extremes, bipolar mania or depression, these are aspects of the heart being maladapted. So the heart is the sovereign of all organs, represents the consciousness of one's being, and is considered to be responsible for our intelligence, wisdom, and spiritual transformation. Most of us fall somewhere between the two extremes of blazing fire and lack of it. But feeling cold, numb, distant, disconnected, aloof can be a result of our own PTSD, traumas of growing up. And sometimes it's painful to experience aspects of our life, this post-traumatic stress disorder that is commonly diagnosed these days. Definitely will affect the fire element. And I mentioned the protector, the heart protector, the pericardium, which is the function. Also, called circulation sex. It's also it enhances the circulation, but sexual energy being the expression of our caring, our love. So it's also it's called pericardium. It's called circulation sex. It's called heart protector, and it is the pericardium, the sac that surrounds the heart and protects the heart. So it is the only official that has another bodyguard to protect it, this pericardium. But we talk about it as a strictly corporeal kind of thing, this sac that surrounds the heart. But at a mental, emotional, spiritual level, we are constantly being exposed to hurts or attacks. Someone can say something to us, or we can hear about the death of someone who's close to us. And the pericardium is a buffer so that it is not a direct hit on our heart. But sometimes our pericardium is so beat up trying to protect the heart that it sometimes loses its energy, and we take a hit because of the strong emotion that we're exposed to.
Lama, what would you recommend or suggest for strengthening the pericardium?
Gratitude. One of the best remedies, in dealing with feeling burnt out or stress or to manage stress is gratitude. And stress is the thing that we're talking about here that is imposing itself on the pericardium. And the science is now in agreement that, counting our blessings is very skillful practice to enhance happiness. And that happiness is important to one's life and is the essential to our overall health and well-being. So in a word, I would say gratitude.
Thank you.
So small intestine is the partner. It's the yang counterpart to the heart is considered yin. You may remember when we talked about these things, solid organs are yin, hollow organs are yang. Although the heart has chambers and valves and things like that, it is still considered a yin or solid organ, and the gastrointestinal system, the small intestine is a long tube, that moves things through it, and we absorb the nutrients that we eat through that process of assimilation in the small intestine. It absorbs our food. So, and the small intestine is divided into three parts, basically: the duodenum, the jejunum, and ileum. And these are responsible for specific aspects of digestion. So we call this organ, like we call the heart the supreme controller. This official is the official of separating the pure from the impure, taking what we need from what we don't need. And that is what the small intestine does. It absorbs the digestive process with its chemical breakdown, proteins, fats, carbohydrates. And the small intestine assimilates these nutrients and eliminates the metabolic waste, passing it on to the large intestine for elimination. So the small intestine is about 34 feet long, depending upon the size of the person. It is a long tube, and it takes that long for things to move through it and opportunity to absorb the nutrients that we need.
I
But
tell you, it takes a long time for gas to get through a baby on those.
You've been noticing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not only in a baby. I mean, now we're seeing a lot of problems, autoimmune problems that can be rooted in problems with our digestive system, commonly known as leaky gut syndrome. That's a condition of intestinal permeability. This happens when the intestinal wall loses its integrity and becomes increasingly porous, and substances that are usually too large to get in the bloodstream get into the bloodstream, and it causes the body to say this does not belong here. It sets up an inflammatory response, and then we have this so-called leaky gut, which causes a myriad of problems. And I would say probably 80% of the people have leaky gut due to a variety of reasons, whether it's the overuse of antibiotics, it's not having the proper biome, the climate for proper digestion, steroids, a variety of things, other drugs. There's a lot of drugs that interfere with the digestive process and create this problem. And unfortunately, in many patients, it goes undiagnosed for long periods of time, creating a snowball effect in the overall health and well-being of the patient. So again, we want to get down to the underlying problem, getting down to the root cause and not just treating symptoms. You can take all kinds of antacids and all kinds of other things, but until you get to the right thing, you'll have IBS, inflammatory bowel, acid reflux, candida, which is a fungal overgrowth, and it'll come out through the skin as eczema, joint pain, constipation, so many problems, and autoimmune problems have their origin in the gut. So as Hippocrates said, was considered the father of modern medicine, let food be your medicine, and all disease begins with the gut. We are now realizing he was right. So taking care of our digestive system by the foods that we eat, unfortunately, we have a lot of foods that are GMO. We have a lot of foods that are shot up with hormones and antibiotics. Again, the antibiotics create this, it kills the friendly flora of the gut, and it has to be replaced. Or if there's something that happens in the small intestine that is SIBO. It's called SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, and that is another commonly found problem. So this small intestine bacterial overgrowth is bad bacteria that when we don't have the right balance, things get out of balance. It's the presence of excessive bacteria in the small intestine. Usually our bacteria is in the large intestine. That's where the activity occurs for the digestive process. But millions of people have gastrointestinal problems and are taking all kinds of antacids and things like that is really not helping. And Crohn's disease, celiac disease, IBS, these are all very common problems that are growing all the time. Okay, that was a lot. Any particular questions so far?
What about this idea that the intestine has a brain, that there are neurons in the intestine and the intestine actually thinks? Has it ever heard that theory?
Oh yeah, we call it the second brain for a reason. And you think you're attracted to certain things because you're attracted. It's your gut saying we need this. And there are 100 trillion bacteria in your gut, and they communicate with each other just fine. And that friendly flora affects your lifestyle choices, stress, a lot of things, believe it or not, are agents of that flora. So yes, it's called the second brain. And it may very well be more like the first brain, but important that you nourish it, you take care of it, using probiotics, eat more fermented vegetables, sauerkraut, kombucha, kefir, include digestive enzymes where needed. There are probiotics, but there's also prebiotics. And those are the things that the probiotics need to be nourished. And usually it is an undigestible sort of fiber. Kiwi is very good. Eat a kiwi a day, along with your probiotics. So these prebiotics are indigestible compounds that help the probiotics grow and thrive and keep your good gut bacteria healthy. And science is now revealing more than ever the importance of these prebiotics in maintaining healthy microbiome in our digestive tract. We have this microbiome all over our bodies. It is not just in the gut. It's on the skin. It's in the sinus cavities. A lot of sinus problems, and I think I may have mentioned this before, is that I think I could make $1 bazillion by creating a prebiotic spray that you inhale through the nose to get into the sinus cavity. The sinus cavities are like Swiss cheese. There are many avenues where this fungus can grow. Just like in the gut, we have this candida and things like that. We have fungal overgrowth in the sinus cavities and create the sinus conditions and sinus infections and things like that. And we have to have a healthy biome throughout the body. We've been primarily talking about the gut, but it is a total system. So those are the
That makes me think of the importance of soil and how it's like good to work with soil and just the smell of soil being healing.
Yeah, people are eating soil. They say that, kids, we're overprotective. We're washing them all the time, and they're washing their hands now more than ever, putting all kinds of antibacterial things on their hands. Yes, the soils are rich in these bacterial aspects. So you're right, and the soils, of course, create the foods that we eat, and our soils are devoid. Try to eat wherever you can the organic foods that come out of a rich soil that is, rich in minerals. And if you test foods that are grown organically and foods that are grown in really inert soils that are sprayed with pesticides, insecticides, and other things, the quality of that food, just from an energetic point of view, and from a mineral nutritional point of view, the organic foods are much richer in those things that are positive. So the small intestine has its work cut out for us as the official that sorts the pure from the impure. And it is under a lot of duress. So eat fresh, eat what's grows close to you in the season that it grows. That is the most natural way to do it. Have a relationship with your farmers. If you go to the co-ops or to farmers markets, see who's growing what, and it's going to be increasingly important, our foods. So I mentioned the fourth, there's the heart, the small intestine, the pericardium, and the triple heater. The triple heater is not an organ. It doesn't have an organ associated with them. There is the meridian, and the triple heater maintains, as I mentioned, the proper temperature of all the organs found in the upper, middle, and lower areas of the torso. And an imbalance here can create a malfunction in that organ system. So it's the body maintains health, trying to maintain homeostasis or the natural balance between the organs. And the triple heater is responsible for heating and cooling the body and maintaining balance through thermal regulation.
Lama?
Yeah.
So often in discussions of diet, a lot of attention's paid to what not to eat. And I'm thinking in particularly like, Courtney's breastfeeding our daughter, and man, if we took the sum total of what they told her not to eat, there's literally nothing left for her to eat. And I was wondering if there's, what should we eat? What's on the
Eat real food. I mean, a lot of people do have allergies to soy and dairy, and I would say grains, wheat in particular. You don't have to have, a disease to not be able to process wheat. But, we talked about promoting gut health and the prebiotics. So asparagus, burdock, chicory, cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, collard greens, kale, radish, rutabaga. Those are the things that are going to promote a healthy gut. But other than that, eat what, as I mentioned, what's in season and what's around you. What are the kinds of things that she can't eat? What did they say about that?
They said dairy, soy, wheat.
Yeah, I would say that same thing.
What else? Courtney, what else? They said fish. There was a whole bunch. And I swear to God, when we got to the end of the list, I was like, here's a carrot to gnaw on, and
yeah, no, I think you'll find most vegetables fine.
okay.
As we go into the winter, root vegetables are good, but vegetables that are in season, you can have, and I'm not sure about the fish situation. There are some fish, if you can eat, the Alaskan salmon and sardines. The smaller the fish, the less, mercury and other kinds of. You don't want farm fish, fish. So there's a lot of things, and we can talk about that more specifically as we go. There's lots of food that is available, but I agree with that was kind of a general thing, and like I say, many people are allergic to soy, and for vegetarians in particular, they eat a lot of soy products, and they are estrogenic, and they can create other secondary problems, cancers, and other kinds of things. If that is your predominant source, and they use it in all kinds of protein powders and things like that, the soy. So best to really limit your soy. People drink soy milk, they eat tofu, they eat all kinds. The tempeh, which is fermented, it changes the quality of the soy. That's fine, but again, this little soy, keep it to a minimum. If you're going to eat grains, basmati rice is probably your best choice. But yes, other grains are really hard to digest because now they've just mutated. They're not the ancient grains that we had before, and they're not digested very well. So if you're having a problem with digestion, I would really keep the grains to a minimum, and that's the pastas, that is the breads, that is that's a lot. We eat a lot of grain products, and that's why our guts are not so good. I know vegetarians who don't like vegetables. They eat soy, they eat all kinds of pasta, and they get big as a house because it's the carbohydrate, lots of sugar, and the body just can't tolerate it. That's why diabetes is on the rise. That's why people are morbidly obese. It's because of our diet. And as you say, there are many diets and people are told to do this, that, and the next thing. But if you eat real food, fresh food that's in season and around you, and not a lot of zero processed food, hopefully. So read labels, keep your carbs to a minimum. And we talked about oils. We talked about the wood element. There are some oils that are also not good and some oils that are good. So make notes, of the things we're talking about because it will serve you in the future. Did that answer your question, Chris?
Yes, thank you.
So, there's a lot of things that affect our health. We talked about hydration. Getting enough sleep is also important for all of our organs. Try to get at least 7 hours sleep at night. Allow for about 7.5 hours in bed. You don't usually fall asleep immediately. Maybe some of you do if you're so tired. But, our society is just driven to succeed. And people say, oh, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead. But that is really not a great strategy for good health and well-being. So periodically through the day, just take 10 seconds to just take a couple of slow, deep breaths periodically through the day. Keep a gratitude diary, reminding yourself of all the good things in your life that you're grateful for each day. And in the blue zones, those people who live the longest, community is also important. So like our Sangha, having a connection with people, this is a source of well-being. To meet together, to talk together. Even though we're not in the same room, we communicate with one another. We have a sense of community. And this is also very important to the fire element and adds to our health and well-being. And the virtue, associated with this, just to reiterate, we talked about it before, the virtues, joyous effort and enthusiastic perseverance. This is the enlightened quality of energy, vigor, vitality, endurance, diligence, enthusiasm, and persistent effort towards, a good cause. To feel purpose. That is important to the people who are long-lived in these so-called blue zones. Okay, any other questions? And of course, doing the Qigong, getting out and walking, breathing, doing your Qigong exercises. As far as other healing foods, we were talking about the omega-6, omega-3s, flaxseed oil, coconut oil, bitter foods like dandelion tea. And chew your food. Make sure you just don't gobble it down. And eat in as calm a fashion as you can. Take time to sit down and eat. Fast foods are not only not good for you, but they don't aid your digestion. When you're in the car, waiting at the takeout, eating in the car, on your way to someplace, take time to taste your food, to chew it, to enjoy it. And again, eat organically and support your local farmers and farmers market. So bitter taste is associated with the greens such as endive, spinach, kale, escarole, Swiss chard, Brussels sprouts, chicory, chives. These are all bitter in their taste, and they're used medicinally because of that taste. Our herbal formulas were generally decocted as teas. So you would get a little bundle of herbs, you'd take them home, you'd cook them up, boil them for extended periods of time, or steep them for a time, and then drink them. And part of it starts with the taste on the tongue, which begins the healing action. So it's the same thing with our foods. Taste your food, chew your food, and avoid the the canned soups, the canned vegetables, hot dogs, fried foods, processed foods, avoid sodas, artificial sweeteners, soy products, and grains as much as possible, as we mentioned. Processed meats and dairy, fruit juices, commercial fruit juices are very high in carbs, and dried fruit are very high in carbs. The high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, sucralose, all those artificial sweeteners are toxic. And, some people talk about aromatherapy for the heart. Rose essence or essential oils is very helpful. Lavender, Melissa is good for the heart.
Nag Champa.
Not champa would be fine. If that brings about a feeling of ease and happiness, yes.
It does.
For teas, though, hawthorn is been used for heart problems. And I've mentioned to many of you about magnesium for healing the heart. The heart really uses magnesium, and sometimes it is a muscle. The heart is a muscle, and sometimes you'll get muscle spasms and aches and pains, and I always recommend magnesium. But for healing the heart too, rule of thumb is generally 5 milligrams per pound of body weight. And there are a lot of different magnesiums, anything that ends in ATE, as I've mentioned before, citrate, glycinate, threonate, but not oxide, magnesium oxide. That is not metabolized. And if you're a coffee drinker in particular, that leaches calcium out of, or magnesium out of your system, so you need to replace it. And if you are having trouble with sleep, in most markets there is a sleepy time tea, sleepy time extra, a celestial seasoning sleepy time extra. It has valerian in it. Valerian is a wonderful nervine and relaxing if you tolerate that. But if you're using it to sleep, use 2 or 3 bags, let it steep for a little longer, so it's actually has a therapeutic value, and drink that about half an hour or so before bed. And if you are vegetarian, we do have to watch the B12 because you may not be getting enough B12. So taking a sublingual of B12, women are often deficient in B12 as well. And vitamin D, as we approach the winter and we're not out as much, vitamin D is very important for the immune system. So just talking about some of those things.